Welcome to Tamil Travels. So in this video, I'm just going to give you a quick real-time passenger experience who flew from London Heathrow to various destinations in India via Mumbai and Delhi. So we all know that Indian government have lifted the temporary ban of flights between UK and India, and they have introduced a new SOP. So according to that, 15 flights can fly between UK and India. So this is between Indian carriers and British carriers. So 15 flights for Indian carriers and 15 flights for British carriers. So according to that, a passenger who was planning to fly to India should have a negative COVID test result before boarding the aircraft. So the first scenario is London to Chennai via Bombay. So the passenger traveled from London Heathrow via Air India. So on boarding, he need to produce a COVID negative certificate, which has to be taken 72 hours within 72 hours before departure. So this passenger had taken a COVID test, which was taken 48 hours before departure. So during check-in, he was asked for COVID negative test result and as with a self-reporting form and a declaration form given by Air India. So the flight was normal. So it's a typical Air India Boeing Dreamliner. So the flight started from London Heathrow and arrived at Mumbai airport. This passenger had a transit to Chennai via Mumbai. So in Mumbai airport, the expectation was he might be sent to institutional quarantine, but that was not the case since this passenger had a connecting flight to Chennai. He was taken in a different queue and he was checked whether he had a COVID negative test result report. So when the passenger produced the COVID negative test result, which was taken in United Kingdom, and I think the government officials who were at the airport allowed him to exit the Mumbai airport terminal, international terminal, and then he was allowed to go and take his connecting domestic flight, which is to Chennai. So the passenger then exited the international terminal, and then he went to catch his domestic flight to Chennai, and then he took the flight. And on arrival at Chennai, this passenger was subjected to COVID test, and he was asked to wait in Chennai airport for until the test result came. So the test result took about 6 hours to come, and until then the passenger was asked to wait at the airport. And once his result was negative, and if the test result comes negative, the passenger will be allowed to exit the airport to be sent for home quarantine. So in case if the passenger had a positive test report at Chennai airport, so if the test result had the previous strain of COVID-19, he would have sent for institutional quarantine in a hotel if there was no symptoms. And if the passenger was showing some symptoms, he might have been taken to hospital to be treated for COVID. And if he had a COVID positive test result for a new strain, then he would have been put in an isolation ward depending on the test result. So this is the scenario for flying from London Heathrow to Chennai via Mumbai transit. So now let's take the second scenario for a passenger who traveled from London Heathrow to Bangalore via Bombay. And so similar to the previous passenger, he also had COVID test result before boarding the aircraft. And then the same thing happened in Mumbai. There was no institutional quarantine because this passenger had a transit flight, and he was allowed to exit the airport and to catch the next flight to Bangalore. And at Bangalore airport, the process was very simple and straightforward. He was not asked for any COVID he was asked for COVID test result, and as he produced the result, which was taken in United Kingdom, there were no additional checks or tests were taken at Bangalore airport. So it was a very straightforward. So the passenger was asked to do the home quarantine. So the scenario 3 is I got an information from a passenger who traveled from London Heathrow to Chennai via Vistara. So the same process before boarding. COVID test is mandatory as with the self-reporting form and any declaration form given by the airlines. So this passenger is transited via Delhi, but this case is different from what we saw before for Mumbai. So at Delhi, when this passenger was boarding at London Heathrow, he was instructed he might be sent for institutional quarantine because of the Delhi government new SOP, which came in law, I think, a couple of days back, instructing all the passengers, even though if they're testing negative, they will be sent to institutional quarantine. So the passenger had an expectation he might be sent to institutional quarantine instead of being allowed to catch the domestic. So on arrival at Delhi airport, the passengers were segregated into two different categories. The one with one who has transit flights or connecting flight to different destination, and one who are flying into Delhi. So all of them were subjected to COVID test at Delhi airport. All of them were taken swab, and they were asked to wait at the respective areas. And once the results came, the passenger who had connecting flights were allowed to take the connecting flight to go to their respective destination. In this case, the passenger was traveling to Chennai, and all those passengers who were traveling into Delhi, they would have been taken to an institutional quarantine. I don't know any information about that, but I got to know that a passenger who had a transit flight or connecting flight, they were allowed to exit Delhi airport once the result came negative. So that's update from me. So these are from real-time passengers and those who traveled in last couple of days. So as soon as I hear more information about the other destination and other airlines, I will post a video as soon as possible when I can. So I hope this information is useful for at least some people who are planning to travel during this time. So please like and share with as much as possible among your friends who are planning to travel between UK and India. And I wish you all a safe journey, and stay home and stay at home and stop the spread of coronavirus. Speak to you all in another video. Thank you.